Hi guys, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Crochet Cakes podcast. I have so many exciting things to share with you this week, but before we begin with all the crafty goodness, I just want to say a huge thank you to anybody who's watching for the 4th, 5th, 6th, or 3rd time, or maybe even the 2nd time. You guys are amazing for coming back to spend a little bit of time with me, and I really appreciate it. I can't believe we're almost at 60 subscribers. So thank you for that. And if you have never tuned in before, then welcome. And I hope you enjoy sharing a little bit of your time with me. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Clarcebeth. I am Crochet Cakes on Instagram and on Ravelry. We also have a Ravelry group for the Crochet Cakes podcast. So I encourage you to drop by, say hello, introduce yourself, tell us how we're doing. Right now I've got a couple of threads going on. There's an introduce yourself thread. There is a work at rest thread, which if you remember is for projects that you haven't really worked on in quite a while. And there's I believe there's also a YouTube TV thread where you can recommend a podcast that you really like, or just talk about podcasts that you really enjoy and what they're up to. So yeah, I'm filming a bit earlier than I usually do on a Saturday because I've got a pretty busy day ahead of me today. It's Saturday the 13th of August and we're throwing a welcome back party for my boyfriend. He's had been gone for a couple of months. I picked him up on Tuesday and I decided that for this party I was going to bake a New York style cheesecake, which I'm a bit anxious about because I don't know if it happens to you guys, but you guys get nervous when you have to bake for other people because there's just no guarantee that they're gonna like what you make, right? But anyway, this week has been a very productive crafting week, which I am really happy about because I love sharing projects with you guys. But sometimes, you know, it's hard to just fit in all the crafting I want to do with everything else that's going on in my life because I do work full time. And then you have to come home, there's chores, there's cooking, there's cleaning, getting ready for the next day. And I love to sleep. So sometimes I just find it hard to fit all of that together with my crafting. But I was very successful this week. But now that I mentioned crafting, this is a crafting crochet podcast, right? So we should actually move on to some crafting. Before we continue with the finished objects segment of the podcast, because I do have finished objects to show, I wanted to talk to you guys about a project that I recently finished. That project is what I'm wearing. I don't know if you can tell. Let me just get up a bit closer to the camera. But I am wearing the Sassy Librarian blouse, which you will have seen me sewing the buttonholes at the beginning of this video, which coincidentally, sewing the buttonholes was my favorite part of sewing this shirt. This is the first garment I have ever sewn, and I'm very happy with it. I mean, there are a couple of mistakes here and there that I had to tear out my stitching and just redo it, but overall I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I'm super glad that I decided to go with a contrasting collar because I just think, you know, it gives the shirt a little something extra. And these buttons, I found them at a thrift store, so I think they're like 80s, 70s maybe. One thing I would like to change about the shirt if I ever make it again is the number of buttons that she puts on the shirt. Christine Haynes, which is the designer of the Sassy Librarian blouse, she recommends sewing 5 buttons on the shirt, 5/8 buttons on the shirt. These are 1-inch buttons, and I sewed 5, but I think I would still have liked to include a bit more than 5, so next time I make the shirt, that's something I want to consider. Speaking of the buttons, the one thing I didn't sew on this shirt were the buttons. I made the buttonholes myself, I sewed everything else, but sewing buttons is not my forte. They always come out way too loose, so I asked my mom to sew them in for me. But that's the only thing I didn't sew on this shirt, which is just lovely. I don't know about you guys, but I love the little birdies with the little, this guy has a little hat, this one has a little scarf, and just, I really like the shirt. Sassy librarian blouse. And I am a librarian, so I think it's fitting that I made this shirt. I think we should move on to finished objects. And, excuse me while I grab it. Finished object I have for you guys this week is the Miss DeVille sweater. Look at it, isn't it just huge? If you will have remembered from last week's episode, I was only missing to sew together the sweater because it is crocheted, knit I should say, because this Miss DeVille sweater pattern is based on the Wonder Wool sweater pattern by Wool and the Gang, and it is a knitted sweater that I just turned into a crochet sweater. I followed all the instructions for the knitted sweater, including the measurements of the body and the amount of stitches you had to cast on for the front and the back of the sweater. I didn't cast on the same number of stitches for the sleeves, but we will get to that in a little bit. So reviewing about this Miss DeVille sweater, I crocheted it using a 15mm crochet hook and this yarn by the Plymouth Yarn Company, which is 49% acrylic, 25% alpaca, 25% wool, and 1% nylon. And I really love how squishy it is and the braiding detail. I just feel it looks like a really just sweater that you're going to use to cozy up when it gets really cold. So if you notice, the sleeves are a bit different from the body of the sweater. I did that on purpose. And the sleeve, you can roll up the cuff so you can get your cuff detailing of the front post, back post double crochet. I haven't yet written my notes or put this project up on my Ravelry page, but because I wanted to show you guys how it had come out first. And oh, I left a little V area so it's not so tight at the bottom. I crocheted this using a 15mm, I can't speak, crochet hook and an 8mm crochet hook for the neck and the cuff area. I used a camel stitch, but I'm pretty sure that you could just use whatever stitch you wanted for the body of the sweater and the sleeves. I think it would look really great if you did a split single crochet or a split half double crochet stitch, because then it'll look continuous and it'll give the appearance of being a knit sweater if that is what you want. Now, the one thing I noticed and that's from the pattern, the sleeves, you also crochet them or knit them using in my case, a 15mm crochet hook, because the pattern called for a 25mm needle on the body and the sleeves. And I found that knitting and crochet stretch, especially depending on the yarn that you use. So I think using such a big hook or needle for the sleeve is not really that good, because it's going to stretch a lot more. But the pattern does use the big 25mm needle, because the sleeve is supposed to be very big. It's in general supposed to be a big chunky sweater. The reason I didn't try it on to show you guys is because this is a gift. It's not for me, so I made it thinking about other person's body. If I put it on, I would just look drowned in this sweater. That is all the finished objects I have for you guys this week. And now I think we should just move straight on through to what am I hooked on? So, what am I hooked on? A couple things to show you guys. One is, ever since I finished my fat bottom bag, I wanted to make another bag, just kind of like a shopping bag or a market bag, where you put in things you buy, basically. And I was inspired by the artichoke bag, which you can find the pattern on the Quince & Co website. It's a knitted pattern, and I know that Katie from Inside Number 23 also made the bag, and I was inspired by it to make a rounded bag. And I put this up on Instagram when I was blocking it. This is the bottom of my circular bag. It's got 17 rows of increases, and I just followed a basic beanie pattern for the circle, and I kept increasing for 17 rows. And right now I've done 5 rows of double crochet without increasing. So basically, I've got a little, kind of looks like a plate. And right now it's all just double crochets, but after I do, I think about maybe 4 inches of the bottom all in double crochet, I am going to start doing a shell pattern to decorate the bag. And then I want it to just have one handle or strap. So for that I will be using Bob Wilson's 123 tutorial, because she does do a market bag with just one strap, which is what I wanted. I am crocheting this using fingering weight yarn, or this is number 10. I'm not sure it's Aunt Lydia's. This is, I'm pretty sure it's Bernat. I've had this for about 4 years and I've never used it, so I've lost the ball band. But I am crocheting this on a Clover Amour 2.75 millimeter crochet hook. One thing I will say about this yarn, not a big fan of it. Not because it's pooling or anything. I don't mind when it pools. I don't know, I think it gives it a little extra design, but that's just me. It's that sometimes the yarn burns my finger. If I crochet on it continuously, I feel that the yarn burns my finger, which I'm not too happy about, but I wanted to use stash busting projects, and this is a good stash busting project. Oh, I also forgot to mention that when I get to probably the last rows of the shell pattern, I was going to switch back to double crochet, and I'm going to switch the color of my yarn, which I think is needed. I'm not sure I have enough left, because you can see the cardboard showing through. So I don't think I have enough left to do the entirety of the bag, but that's okay because I was going to switch to a green anyway. The other thing I'm hooked on is something that hasn't made an appearance in this podcast for a while, and that is my marigold sweater, a pattern by Rebecca Velasquez, if I'm not mistaken, and it's available at the Quince & Co website. Let's talk about the marigold sweater for a little bit. Previously known as my pineapple sweater, I convinced myself that I had to cast on another, not cast on, it's not knitting, that I had to start another sweater with this same pattern but a different yarn, because I wanted to test my gauge. I know I knit tightly. Crochet. I know I crochet tightly, but I wanted to see how tightly I was crocheting in terms of what the pattern called for. So I figured out that I need about 20 stitches to get to the measurement that it was specified in the pattern. So I started it again, and I've switched yarns, I've switched color schemes, so this is no longer my pineapple sweater. I haven't really named it yet, but I was thinking I was going to call it my Lime Rita sweater. It's a good name, right? You've got a lime green color. This kind of reminds me of ice cubes. Lime Rita sweater. There we go. Right now I've done 4, and I've started my 5th lace pattern repeat. If you recall, you're supposed to do 10 rows of this pattern repeat, which is a 4 pattern repeat. You're supposed to do 10 rows and get to 17 inches approximately. I did my gauge, and it's going to take me more than 10 pattern repeats to get to the 17 inches. But I also made it smaller than what was specified in the pattern because if I did the number of stitches that she specified, it was going to be too big on me, and I wanted it to be just a little bit tighter than what it looks like in the pattern. So I cast on. What is with casting on? I did, I believe it's 73 stitches, double crochet, 73 double crochets. The yarn that I'm using for this, if you will recall, it's the yarn I was using for my cap sleeve top, which will formally be frogged now. This is no longer a war project. This will be frogged to make room for my marigold sweater pattern. The yarn is this one, Sahara by the Plymouth Yarn Company. It is 40% linen, 40% bamboo, and 20% silk. It's a really luxurious blend, and I really enjoy crocheting with it. It's really soft, but I didn't have enough of that yarn to make the entire marigold sweater. I needed 1,300 and something yards in total. I only had about 600 of the Sahara, but then I remembered that when my mom came back from Germany, she bought me this yarn. 40% linen, 32% viscose, and 28% baum wool, which I think is cotton in German. And this one is the lime color, which I think they go together quite nicely, and I'm very, very pleased. Sorry about that interruption, but my neighbor was cutting his yard and my dog decided to work all at the same time. Without further ado, let's keep going with the crafty crochet goodness, right? So as I was talking about the marigold sweater, I'm much happier with how it's turning up now that I've switched my yarn, and we will see how it goes. I'm not going to say I'm going to have this finished by next time because I don't want to curse myself. I usually say I'm going to have this finished next time, and then I just find a new project and I start that new project and I work on it, but not enough to show progress. Those are all the crochet that I have to share with you guys this week. So let's move on to snail knitting, which is my knitting segment of the podcast. I have two things to talk to you about this week on snail knitting. Number one, I have cast on a new pair of socks that I showed you the yarn last week, not the last time, not the socks. The socks weren't cast on. Now I can use cast on. It's a very catchy term, cast on. Anyway, this is the blueberry waffle pattern, and I am really, really enjoying it. It's really a fun pattern to do, and I have a bit of a hard time putting it down because I find it so lovely. I find it lovely, and the yarn is super, super, super squishy. It's what I showed you last week, which I believe is so the ball band has gained legs and has walked on and moved on with its life, but this is a 50-gram skein of yarn. It is, oh Lord, I'm really bad at this. I don't remember the name of the yarn, but I do know it's a merino cashmere silk blend. Yes, it's merino cashmere silk. So it's really just, I mean, it's just lovely and squishy and beautiful, and I am loving knitting on this blueberry waffle pattern. I'm almost done with my leg rows. I was going to do about 5 inches of the leg to then start the heel. I'm knitting this on 3 DPNs because it's what she suggests on the pattern, and I did the full 52 stitches that she suggested with the DK weight. Why? because I learned that I have an obnoxiously tight gauge when I am knitting. How did I come about that? Well, I was looking at my 64 stitch socks, which I've previously named my Doom Bloom socks, and they were, if you remember, in the opal, this lovely opal skein. I do have the ball band for this one. This one. It's supposed to look like that. And I was just looking at the Bakery Bears podcast and other podcasts to washing their knitted socks, and I just felt that mine were really, really teeny tiny. Like, these are the socks you would knit for a child. So I measured my gauge on this sock, and it turns out that it turns out that there are 11 stitches to the inch. So my gauge is really tight, which means I am not going to be continuing these socks. I am going to break them up, cast them on again, but I think I am going to use either 2.25s or 2.75 because I kind of did a little bit of math figuring this out. So I measured my leg, and I've got 8 inches all around, which means that I would need to cast on 88 stitches on 2.25 to get a sock that is going to fit my foot. I had enough issues casting on a 64-inch sock. I'm not casting on an 88 stitch. So I'm going to be breaking these up and figuring out whether I should go up to 2.5 or further to 2.75. Which is why for these lovely, lovely blueberry waffle socks, which I am calling my raspberry waffle socks because it is more of a raspberry color, I cast it on 52, like the pattern recommended, instead of 48. And look, it's just beautiful and stretchy. Love it. So it's a good thing I figured out that my gauge in knitting is obnoxiously tight, because that's going to help me with the rest of the socks I cast on. That is all I actually have to show you for my snail knitting. So that is all the works in progress that I have to share with you guys, but I do have an idea of what projects are going to be in my near future. And one of them is that I decided to knit a scarf. I was originally going to crochet a scarf, but the yarn that I have is not enough for the pattern I had in mind. So I decided I was just going to knit a simple knit stitch scarf, nothing extravagant, to send to a friend who recently moved to the States, and I believe she will be in need of a very warm, woolly scarf. The other thing that is very near in my future is the Hollyburn skirt. I believe I mentioned I was going to be participating in the Hollyburn skirt. I don't seem to be able to talk today. Hollyburn Skirt Sew Along, hosted by Katie from Inside Number 23. She's doing a series of video tutorials for this pattern as well, and it just started the 1st of August, so feel free to join if you want. And right now she's done, I think, three videos, or is it 4? She has a fabric recommendation video, a measurement video, a cutting video, and a sewing your pockets video. So it's a total of 4 videos that she's done as a tutorial for this sew along, and they're really good videos, very informative, and she takes the time to just take you through all the little details and extra bits and bobs that she does while she's sewing. So that is another project in my near future. In addition to that, I am also going to be starting a crochet shawl, but that will have to wait until sometime in the first week of September, because I ordered yarn from Kayleen again, which, if you remember in the video that I did for the Harry Potter yarn, which I have with me because it's just lovely and I want to show it again. It's Little Bean Loves hand-painted yarns. You can visit her Etsy shop. I will put the link down below. And I ordered one of her Halloween colorways. The yarn was in pre-order until today, which is Saturday the 13th. So by the time this podcast comes up, it will no longer be in pre-order. But I ordered the Dark Mark colorway, which has beautiful tones of purple and green and a bit dark purple, which kind of looks like black. It's just really lovely. And I already have in mind the shawl pattern that I'm going to do, which I'm also going to use to take part in her Halloween crochet along, which started now in August, and it goes up until the 1st of August. So also feel free to join. She's Little Bean and Me podcast on Ravelry, I believe. I will also put the link down below. I believe that is all I have to share with you guys this week in terms of crafty and crochet goodness. But before I say goodbye, I just wanted to ask, who has read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child? I was a bit anxious to start reading it because, I don't know, I think I was afraid that the book would somehow ruin my Harry Potter universe unicorn. And I was very anxious, but at the same time, it was Harry Potter, so I had like an inner battle, and I tried putting off reading it for a while. But then the other day, I sat down and I read the whole first act, and I'm just gonna say I had to put it down because my heart hurt from what I was reading, and I knew that if I could have finished the book that same night, but then I wouldn't have gotten up in time to work. So I put it down and decided to give myself a little break before I continued into this Harry Potter universe. So if you have read the book, I will open a Harry Potter and the Cursed Child thread on Ravelry where you can tell me your thoughts on the book, and don't give away any spoilers, or if you are going to give away spoilers, then just please write spoiler alert so anybody else who hasn't read it doesn't read your spoiler by accident, because I don't know about you guys, but I really hate spoilers. Like, if I'm really excited about a movie, I will not watch the trailer because I feel it gives a little bit away. So that is really it for this week, guys. I want to thank you for joining me again, and I hope that you have a very beautiful weekend and a lovely crafting week. You guys are amazing, and I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye!